What is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin because I do be reading, and we're doing my January wrap up. Somehow we're already at the end of January. In fact, it is now February when I'm filming this, but January also simultaneously felt like the longest month ever, so love that for me. But anyways, I was kind of slumpy this month, but I did still manage to read 6 books, so let's get into it. So the first book that I read in January was actually Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is my first TJR book. I know I'm very late to the game. This book is really popular all over the online book community. It's having like a resurgence on Book Talk right now, and it's just been everywhere on my For You page. I was scrolling through Libby and saw that the audiobook was available. So I just decided to check it out, and I listened to it, and I have to say it's probably one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. It's a full cast, and I don't think I would have enjoyed this book as much if I had not listened to it. So if that's any indication. Overall, though, I did give this book about like a 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the listening experience, but it didn't quite hit. And honestly, that could just be the expectation really got to me, but this book is following a made-up band called Daisy Jones and the Six, and it's set in the 70s, and it is interview style, so it kind of feels like one of those like MTV behind-the-scenes documentaries on a band, and so it's really just interview format, which is definitely interesting. I think that the author mostly nailed it, but there was a twist that happened at the end of this book that I really did not like, and it colored the rest of my thoughts on this book. If you know, you know. Was not a fan of it, but I think it was just such an interesting format, and TJR definitely has a great ability to write her characters. I thought everyone was really dynamic. Everyone felt very real, especially our main characters, Daisy and Billy. I mean, I did not like these characters, to be quite honest. Daisy was a hot mess. Billy was annoying. I wouldn't actually want to befriend any of these people in real life, but they felt like very real human characters. Even with all of their flaws, they just felt very real, you know? I really do commend TJR for that, but overall this just didn't quite meet my expectations. I just think that I thought this book was going to be a lot more sweeping and bombastic than it was. It was very much a quiet, more muted story than I was expecting. So I guess it's kind of on me. If you set your expectations a little bit differently, maybe you'll enjoy it a lot more. And I really did not like the ending. So 3.5 stars. I'm definitely going to check out the miniseries that's coming out, though. So you'll notice a little bit of a theme for these next few books. I basically read 4 books in a row that centered music or the entertainment industry. It was by accident, but it was a good time. So the next book that I read was Real by Kennedy Ryan. This is a romance book that follows Neva Saint, who is a Broadway actress, an aspiring actress, and we have Cannon Holt, who is a famous film director. He's working on a new project about a Black woman from like the 30s, like Harlem Renaissance era, who was a pretty prolific singer in this world, not in real life, and telling her story, basically. So he sees Neva at a Broadway play. She's like the understudy, but the person who was in that main role went on vacation or something like that, so she took it up, and the stars just aligned that he happened to be at the show. He's like, I have to cast her. So this is really about them making this movie, and we get snippets from the actual like film script and stuff like that. It was really cool, and it is a romance between the two of them. And even though ordinarily I would be a little bit meh because of the power imbalance between the director and a relatively unknown actress, it was handled with care, and it was actually addressed in the book, so I appreciated that. I thought they had a really great romance, really great chemistry. I like how each of them kind of had their own like personal stories and personal growth that they had to go through. But I will say Neva has a chronic illness, and that becomes kind of a central focus of the book around the halfway point. It turns serious, and there's a lot of discussion about chronic illness and like death and stuff like that. So this is a romance. There is a happy ever after. Let me just make that clear. But it does get really like intense in the latter half of the book, which was a shock to me. I will say maybe I should have looked more into the reviews of this book, but it had been popping up on my For You page on TikTok a lot, and no one had really been talking about like the tonal shift that happens in this book. So I just want to make that clear that that does happen. I still really enjoyed it, but if it's something that might trigger you, maybe I would avoid it. Then I read another romance book. I read The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes by Zia Axelrod. This is another romance book about music and the entertainment industry. We have Tony Bennett, not that Tony Bennett. We have Tony Bennett, who is a guitarist. She's a musician. She's living in Philadelphia. She's kind of in the local music scene, but nothing has really like propelled her into stardom. Not that she really wants to. She's actually more interested in the production side of music, but she gets the opportunity to audition to be the guitarist for this up and coming, really popular like pop punk band. And so she gets it. And here's the thing. The manager is someone who was her best friend growing up in this small town. He kind of abandoned her, and so there's kind of bad blood between them. It's also been years since they've seen each other, and it turns out he's the manager of this band. So we kind of have friends to lovers / second chance romance situation in this book. They're having to work out their issues. I was really, really interested in the like music and band side of this. I think that's where this book's strong suits lie. I'm definitely interested in reading, I think there's another book in this series coming out following a different band member, but I typically like friends to lovers. In fact, I love friends to lovers. But the second chance component did not really work out here for me personally, because it focused too much on the chemistry that they had when they were younger. We get little snippets and stuff, but we don't really see them like refinding themselves or like reacquainting themselves with each other. It's been like 6 or 7 years. They were teenagers when they last saw each other, and now they're, fully grown adults. A lot has changed, and I don't think we got enough scenes with them in the now. So that was my issue with it. The actual romance part was okay, but I did love like the actual like band and plot of this book, which I know that's not really the point, but anyways, it was still an enjoyable read. It was a really quick read, even though it kind of looks a bit chunky. And I gave this one 3 stars. Okay, and this is the last book about music. I really don't know what was going on with me in January, but I read Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. This is a genre-bending adult sci-fi fantasy book. We are following 3 women. We have Katrina, who is recently run away from her home. She's a trans woman who grew up in a really abusive environment. She's also a violin prodigy, self-taught mainly, and she really just wants to make a career as a violinist. We also have Shizuka, who is a violin instructor. She's known as the Queen of Hell, and that is because she actually made a deal with the devil. She has to collect 7 souls of 7 violin prodigies to deliver to hell, and her curse will be broken, and she can like play music again, basically. So she is looking for her 7th and final victim. And so obviously you can tell that Katrina and Shizuka's storylines are going to converge. And then we have Len, who is a starship captain. She is a refugee from her home planet, which is in war. She's come with her family, and she is now running a donut shop. And honestly, I wanted donuts so bad while I was reading this book. So there isn't a lot of plot going on. This is mainly like a character story, a character work type of book. We're leading up to this timeline where Shizuka has to deliver the soul, or else she's going to be like damned to hell or whatever. So that's kind of like in the background going on, but really it's like kind of a found family trope. We have some romance. We have, you know, growing and finding yourself and kind of healing from abuse and, you know, all of, especially Katrina, she has like a lot of insecurities about her body and how she presents and all of that stuff. So I really liked this book. It was really good. There were parts of this where it was a lot. There's some content warnings in this book, especially for like homophobia, transphobia, racism. Those are kind of the bigger ones. But you can go to, I'll link this website down below called booktriggerwarnings.com that has a lot of books where you can look up the content warnings. But I just really love the found family trope. It was so cute. I was here for it. I was here for the romance. Shizuka and Lan have the romance. And yeah, I don't know. I just really liked watching this story and all of these people's lives converging. And the prose in this is so good. It's very beautiful. It's very lyrical, as you could imagine, because we're talking a lot about music and the descriptions of music and of food and culture and just like the setting was just so beautiful. And it really worked to enhance the story. And honestly, it just felt like a love letter to music and the violin and like queerness and Asian American identity. It just, you know, oddly enough, even though there were parts of this that were kind of difficult to read, this book felt like a warm hug. Like it was very comforting, and I can imagine myself rereading this book. So I definitely recommend it, especially if you're a sci-fi fantasy person. I really enjoyed it. 4.5 stars. Amazing. Then I read a book for my local book club, and that was You Were Born for This, Astrology for Radical Self-Acceptance by Chani Nicholas. I'm not going to give this book a rating, mainly because this was definitely not a book for me, and this is not a book I would have ordinarily picked out. It's nonfiction. It's kind of a self-help-esque book that focuses on astrology, and it kind of teaches you how to read your birth chart and like what the different signs and like your rising and sun sign, like all of that. So I'm not an astrology person. Like, I think it's fun sometimes, but I'm not someone who really puts a lot of stock in it. So I knew this book was not going to be for me when I went into it. So it was definitely interesting. I think the best part of this book, honestly, was the introduction where Chani talked about her life and what brought her into this direction of, you know, astrology and becoming an astrologer and how much it means to her. I enjoyed that part. Honestly, I would read a memoir from her. But then when it went into like the actual like astrology, like reading your birth chart stuff, to be quite honest, like I felt like I was left with more questions than answers, which I was just very confused. I don't think it really did a good job of like really teaching like a super beginner on how to like read your birth chart. Regardless, I was not looking really to figure out and learn how to do that. But that's all I'm saying if you are someone who is interested in this book. But I know she's a very popular and well-respected astrologer and has like this really big social media presence. So if you're someone who already likes her content or you're someone that likes astrology, I would recommend checking this book out. But like I said, it was definitely not the type of book I would ordinarily pick up. So I just didn't feel comfortable giving a rating for it. And lastly, Jade War by Fonda Lee. I mean, what a book. What a series. I am terrified to read the finale. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break. I will say this. So I know a lot of people like this book more than the first one, and I feel the opposite. I still think I liked the first book better than this one. I still enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but it just didn't quite come together as well as Jade City did. But anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the Greenbone Saga series, the first book being Jade City, it is a 1970s Hong Kong martial arts-esque inspired story, adult fantasy. It's set in this country island called Kekon, and this island is known for having jade. It's the only country in this world that has jade, and jade in this world has magical properties. People who are users of it, their abilities get enhanced, they get extra strong, they're able to kind of like perceive what people are about to do. It gives them a lot of like heightened strength and all of that stuff, right? You do have to be like very well trained before you're even able to handle jade. The ordinary person could not just go and pick it up. It will kind of have bad side effects on them, although there is a drug that's being developed by other countries to allow the average user or the average person to use it without having side effects. But anyways, we have the Call family, who are the leaders of the No Peak clan. There are multiple clans in this country, but there's two main ones that are kind of duking it out. It's the No Peaks and the Mountain clan. There's a lot of animosity and bad blood between them. They're kind of fighting throughout this series. There's also like dealing with colonization in other countries that are coming in. It's a very, very heavy political fantasy, very heavy on the politics. This book was definitely a little bit slower than Jade City. You get a lot more of like the political machinations, especially dealing with like international politics. A lot of the heavy, like dramatic stuff that happens in the last like 100 pages of the book. So I was very stressed. Things were very concentrated at the end of this book. I think the pacing was a little bit off, although I wouldn't necessarily take anything out of this. I think it just needed to maybe be reformatted. I don't know. I'm not a writer. Something about it just like didn't quite come together for me, although I still obviously loved it. This is definitely a series that might be I love the whole rather than the individual parts, but even then I still love the individual parts. I don't know what I'm saying. I think this was still a great follow-up, and it was intense and a lot, and I'm just scared. I'm scared for the last book, but 4 stars, great stuff. That is all I have for y'all today. Pretty short, I feel like, but yeah, like I said, I was a bit slumpy this month, but yeah, I have all my links and stuff down below. Follow me on social media, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.